good evening. Imagine a medieval village cloaked in dusk, where candlelight trembles and the air hums with whispered fears. The Black Death creeps like a thief, stealing breath and hope. Yet amid this shadow, hearts burn fierce with defiance. Picture a healer's hands, stained with herbs, brewing fragile remedies, a chronicler's quill, etching names to outlive oblivion, or villagers clasping hands, their prayers a shield against despair. These aren't tales of kings or battles, but of raw, unshakable souls facing a merciless plague. From quiet courage to desperate rituals, their stories pulse with sorrow and strength, weaving a tapestry of humanity's fight to endure. Can you hear the distant bells? Feel the weight of their loss? Dim the lights, nestle into the night's embrace, and wander with me into this haunting past where every flicker of hope was a victory, a spark against the darkest storm. As the world outside quiets and the stars begin their gentle watch, let us slip softly into the past, where the air hums with the weight of 1,000 untold stories. Picture a medieval evening much like this one, the glow of a hearth casting shadows on rough-hewn walls, and the distant call of an owl weaving through the stillness. Tonight, we embark on a journey to the heart of 4th century Europe, a time before the Black Death cast its long, merciless shadow. Settle in, let the day's burdens fade, and allow the rhythm of history to cradle you. We're not here for battles or kings, but for the pulse of everyday lives, fragile, vibrant, and achingly human, poised on the edge of an unimaginable storm. Imagine, if you will, a world utterly unlike our own, where the conveniences we take for granted, electric lights, instant messages, or the hum of a refrigerator, are as distant as dreams. In the 1000s, Europe was a tapestry of toil and tradition, stitched together by the rhythms of the seasons and the iron grip of feudalism. Most souls were peasants, their days beginning with the rooster's crow and ending when the last light bled from the sky. They toiled in fields, their hands calloused from wielding scythes and hoes, coaxing life from the earth to pay their lords and fill their humble tables. Their homes were simple one-room cottages with dirt floors and thatched roofs, where families huddled around a single fire for warmth. Life was a cycle of planting and harvesting, broken only by the rare joy of a feast day or village fair, yet it was a life they knew, predictable in its hardships. Their diet was as plain as the soil they tilled: coarse bread, thin porridge, and whatever vegetables their small plots yielded: cabbages, leeks, perhaps a few herbs. Meat was a luxury, savored on holy days or special occasions, its smoky richness a fleeting delight. Clothing, too, was practical, woven from rough wool or linen, often mended and passed down through generations until it frayed to threads. But oh, how they found joy in the smallest moments. A wedding brought the village together, with music from a creaking fiddle and dances that shook the dust from the rafters. Harvest festivals spilled into the night, laughter mingling with the clink of mugs and the glow of bonfires. Even a well-told tale by the hearth or a spirited game of dice could spark warmth in hearts worn by labor. These were people who knew the weight of life, yet they carried it with a stubborn, quiet grace. Beyond the fields, the social ladder rose steeply. Merchants and craftsmen, the burgeoning middle of society, dwelt in towns, their homes boasting multiple rooms, perhaps a glass window or a tapestry to ward off the chill. Their tables held richer fare, spiced wines, imported fruits, delicacies from distant lands reflecting their growing wealth in a world of trade. At the pinnacle stood the nobility knights, lords, and ladies, cloistered in grand castles or manor houses, surrounded by servants and finery. Their days were filled with hunting, hawking, or courtly games, poetry recitals, chess matches, or the thrill of a tournament. Yet, for all their privilege, they were not spared the specter of mortality. Disease, famine, and warfare lurked, claiming young and old alike. a reminder that no title could outrun fate. Among these nobles was Sir John of Gaddesden, a man whose story weaves through our tale like a golden thread. Born in 1280 to a noble English family, John was the epitome of chivalry, proud, pious, and battle-tested, having fought alongside King Edward II against Scotland. But his heart lay not in the clash of swords, but in the quiet pursuit of healing. A learned man, he pored over ancient texts from Greece and Rome, his library a sanctuary of dusty tomes and flickering candles. When not managing his estates or attending court, John experimented with remedies, blending herbs and wisdom in a quest to ease suffering. Little did he know that his knowledge would soon face a trial unlike any other, for a shadow was gathering on the horizon, carried on the winds of trade and fate. In the summer of 1348, a ship docked at Melcombe Regis, its cargo hiding an unseen passenger, a plague that would soon engulf Europe in terror. But before we trace its devastating path, let us linger in this moment, when the world still turned in its familiar orbit. Picture a village square at dusk, the air thick with the scent of fresh-baked bread and the chatter of neighbors. The local priest offers blessings, his voice a steady comfort, while children chase hoops through the dust, their laughter a fleeting hymn to innocence. The blacksmith's hammer rings out, a counterpoint to the bleating of sheep in the fields. Life, for all its struggles, held a fragile beauty, a beauty soon to be tested by a calamity that would rewrite history. As we drift deeper into this tale, consider the people of this time. Peasants dreaming of a bountiful harvest, merchants tallying their wares, nobles penning verses to their loves. They could not know what awaited them, yet their lives, so ordinary and yet so profound, set the stage for a story of loss and resilience. The Black Death would come, unyielding and merciless, but it would also reveal the unbreakable spirit of those who faced it. So, rest now, dear listener, and let these images linger. The fire is low, the night is soft, and history waits to unfold its next chapter. We'll meet again soon, under the same stars, to follow the path of a world forever changed. As the embers of our tale glow softly, dear listener, let us wander deeper into the heart of 4th century Europe, where the rhythm of life beats like a distant drum under a vast, star-strewn sky. The world before the Black Death was one of grit and grace, where every sunrise brought toil and every sunset a moment to breathe. Picture a hamlet nestled in rolling hills, its chimneys trailing wisps of smoke, and the faint clatter of wooden spoons against bowls drifting through the air. This is no grand saga of crowns or conquests, but a gentle tapestry woven from the daily threads of ordinary folk peasants, artisans, and lords, each bound by custom, faith, and the unyielding pulse of survival. So, ease into this quiet night, let the world's clamor fade, and join me in the glow of a time long past. In this era, the vast majority of Europe's souls were tethered to the land, their lives shaped by the turning of the seasons and the demands of their feudal masters. Dawn broke, with the creak of ox carts and the lowing of cattle, as men and boys trudged to fields armed with sickles and plows. Their labor was relentless, carving furrows into the earth to sow barley, rye, or oats, crops that meant survival through the lean winter months. Women and girls, meanwhile, stirred hearths to life, their hands busy with chores that never ceased: milking goats, kneading dough, or spinning wool into thread by the flicker of rushlights. Homes were humble, often a single room of wattle and daub, where straw pallets served as beds and a shared pot bubbled over the fire. Yet, within these walls, families found warmth, their voices mingling in murmured prayers or tales of local lore. Sustenance was simple, rooted in what the land could offer. A meal might be a pottage of lentils and onions, thickened with a crust of dark bread baked in communal ovens, fruits like apples or berries, plucked from hedgerows, were a rare treat, while ale brewed from barley, and safer than water, was the drink of all ages. Clothing mirrored this frugality: tunics and hose of coarse homespun, patched and repatched, with cloaks of undyed wool to fend off rain. But life was not all drudgery. Villages pulsed with moments of revelry christenings, where neighbors feasted on honeyed cakes, or midsummer fairs where jugglers and peddlers drew crowds. A fiddler's tune could spark a dance, feet stomping in the dust, while elders swapped stories of saints or mischievous spirits under the shade of an ancient oak. Beyond the rural heartlands, towns buzzed with a different energy. Here, merchants and craftsmen formed the backbone of a growing urban world. Cobblers, weavers, and bakers worked in narrow shops, their wares spilling onto bustling streets. A merchant's home might boast a timbered frame, with shutters flung wide to catch the breeze, and a table laden with luxuries pepper from distant shores or wine from Bordeaux. These folk enjoyed a wider world, their lives touched by trade routes stretching to the Levant or the Baltic. Guilds governed their crafts, ensuring quality and camaraderie, while market days thrummed with haggling and the jingle of coins. Yet, even here, life was precarious, shadowed by the threat of fire, flood, or fever that could unravel fortunes overnight. At the summit of this world stood the nobility, their lives a stark contrast to the toil below. Lords and ladies dwelt in stone-walled manors or towering castles, their halls adorned with woven tapestries and silver candelabras. Their days unfolded in leisure or duty, overseeing estates, judging disputes, or riding out with falcons on gloved wrists. Banquets were lavish, with roasted venison and spiced custards, served by retainers in livery. Knights honed their skills in jousts, their armor gleaming, while ladies embroidered or sang ballads of courtly love. Yet, even these privileged few were not immune to fate's whims. Childbirth claimed mothers, battles felled warriors, and illness spared no rank. Death was a constant companion, its presence woven into prayers and the tolling of church bells. Among these elites was Sir John of Gaddesden, a figure who bridges the worlds of sword and slave. Born to wealth in 1280, he cut a dashing figure in England's wars against Scotland, his valor earning him renown. But John's true calling lay in the study of physics, his chambers filled with parchment scrolls and the scent of dried herbs. He sought wisdom in the works of Hippocrates and Galen, mixing potions to soothe fevers or mend wounds. His passion for healing set him apart, a noble who looked beyond the battlefield to the quiet art of saving lives. Unbeknownst to him, his skills would soon be tested by a foe no blade could slay, a pestilence lurking just beyond the horizon. As we linger in this world, envision a village at twilight, the air alive with the scent of wood smoke and the soft bleat of sheep being herded home. The alderman settles a quarrel in the square, his voice firm but fair, while a priest blesses a newborn, his words a shield against unseen perils. Children dart through alleys, their giggles fading into the dusk, unaware of the storm gathering far off a ship nearing Melcombe Regis in 1348, its hold carrying a silent terror. This is a world of balance, where hardship and hope coexist, where faith and labor hold chaos at bay. Rest now, dear listener, with these scenes in your heart. The night is gentle, the tale unfinished. We'll return soon to follow the shadow that changed this world forever. As the night wraps us in its velvet embrace, dear listener, let us venture further into the shadowed heart of 14th century Europe, where a silent terror began its merciless march. The world we've glimpsed alive, with the toil of peasants, the bustle of merchants, and the splendor of lords, was poised on the brink of calamity. Picture a summer's eve in 1348, the air heavy with the scent of hay, unaware of the doom sailing toward shore. Tonight, We trace the Black Death's relentless spread, a plague that swept across the continent like wildfire, leaving sorrow and silence in its wake. So, dim the lights, let the world's hum fade, and allow this tale to unfold gently, its weight softened by the cadence of history. We step now into a time when death became a familiar guest, yet the human spirit flickered still. It began with a whisper of dread, carried on the creak of a ship's timbers. In the summer of 1348, a vessel docked at Melcombe Regis, a quiet English port, its hold teeming with an unseen passenger, Yersinia pestis, a bacterium borne by fleas nestled in the fur of rats. From this humble arrival, the Black Death unfurled, its tendrils reaching across Europe with terrifying speed. By autumn, it had clawed its way through England, France, and Italy, and by 1351, no corner of the continent from Sicily's sunlit shores to Scandinavia's misty fjords was spared. Estimates whisper of a toll, unimaginable 30 to 60% of Europe's people, perhaps 75 to 200 million souls, perished in a handful of years. Some hamlets vanished entirely, their names erased from memory, while cities like Florence and Avignon mourned half their kin. The plague struck with a cruelty that defied comprehension. It came in three forms: bubonic, with swollen, blackened lymph nodes that wept pus; pneumonic, choking lungs with blood; and septicemic, a swift poison in the veins. Victims burned with fever, their bodies racked by pain, often dying within days. In Florence, the poet Giovanni Boccaccio bore witness to the horror, writing of corpses piled in churches, trenches dug to swallow the dead like merchandise stacked in a ship's hold. In Avignon, seat of the papal court, the toll was so great that Pope Clement VI consecrated the Rhone River itself, allowing bodies to be cast into its currents. The stench of decay clung to the air, and the tolling of bells became a ceaseless dirge, marking the passage of the fallen. No rank or station offered refuge. The plague was a great leveler, its scythe sparing neither pauper nor prince. In England, Princess Joan, the 14-year-old daughter of King Edward III, set out for her betrothal to Prince Pedro of Castile, her entourage glittering with promise. Yet, as they crossed France, the pestilence struck, claiming her handmaiden, then her guards, and finally Joan herself in Bordeaux, her dreams of queenship snuffed out in September 1348. Across the Channel, Lady Eleanor de Bohun, daughter of the powerful Earl of Hereford, succumbed in 1349, her father's grief echoing through his ravaged estates. In Scotland, the plague turned hunter, felling an English army only to rebound and devastate the Scots themselves, proving borders meant nothing to this foe. The plague's path was a mosaic of despair. In the Norwegian village of Bergen, archaeologists later unearthed a mass grave, its 100 skeletons twisted in silent agony, a testament to the pestilence's grip. In Siena, chronicler Agnolo di Tura wrote, "So many died that all believed it was the end of the world." Entire families vanished, their homes left to crumble, fields abandoned to weeds. Ports, once alive with trade, grew ghostly as ships were shunned or burned to halt the contagion. In Bremen, vessels waited 40 days before unloading, birthing the practice of quarantine in a desperate bid to outwit an enemy no one understood. Yet the fleas, carried by rats or clinging to cloth, slipped through every defense, spreading death with each scurrying step. Society reeled under the weight of loss. Markets fell silent, their stalls empty. Livestock wandered untended, crops rotted in fields. Food grew scarce, and famine trailed the plague like a vulture. Fear gnawed at hearts, turning neighbor against neighbor. Rumors swirled of divine wrath or poisoned air, and many saw the apocalypse unfolding. The church, a beacon in calmer times, struggled to offer solace as priests died in droves, some fleeing their flocks, others ministering until they too fell. In Avignon, Pope Clement sat between blazing fires, hoping heat might ward off the sickness, while issuing last rites through windows to the dying below. Faith wavered for some, yet others clung to it fiercely, their prayers a fragile shield against despair. Amid the chaos, the plague's shadow touched every soul, rich or poor, young or old. In the Duchy of Gloucester, nobles fell like leaves in a storm, leaving estates hollow and power in disarray. The sight of bishops and knights, their faces marred by sores, shook the medieval order, tarnishing the church's divine aura. Yet, even as the world seemed to fracture, glimmers of resilience shone through. In some villages, survivors buried their dead with quiet dignity, whispering names to keep them alive in memory. These acts, small but defiant, hinted at the strength that would carry Europe through its darkest hour. As we pause here, dear listener, envision a city street at twilight, its cobbles slick with rain, the air heavy with the toll of bells. A mother clutches her child, whispering a lullaby against the fear, while a merchant shutters his shop, praying for dawn. The Black Death has arrived, its presence a cold breath on the neck of a continent. But this is not the end of our tale. For even in this abyss, stories of courage and compassion wait to be told. Rest now. Let these images linger like a half-remembered dream. The fire is low, the night deep, and history beckons us onward to a chapter where humanity faces its greatest test. As the stars cast their quiet light over our world, dear listener, let us tread softly into the heart of a darkening storm, where the Black Death tightened its grip on 14th century Europe. The vibrant hamlets and bustling towns we've wandered through now lie under a pall of fear, their rhythms shattered by a relentless foe. Imagine a village square, once alive with laughter, now hushed save for the wail of mourners and the creak of carts bearing the fallen. Tonight, we delve into the unraveling of a society pushed to its breaking point, where despair bred chaos and suspicion turned neighbor against neighbor. So, nestle into the stillness, let the night's calm enfold you, and allow this somber tale to weave its way through your thoughts, gentle as a whispered lament. The plague's onslaught left no corner of life untouched, tearing at the very fabric that held communities together. As death claimed entire households, the structures of order crumbled. In Siena, chronicler Agnolo di Tura penned a heart-wrenching truth: fathers forsook their children, wives fled husbands, brothers abandoned each other. So fierce was the terror of contagion. The bonds of kinship, once unbreakable, frayed under the weight of survival's grim calculus. Villages stood desolate, their fields choked with weeds, while cities like Florence saw markets stall, their stalls abandoned as merchants barricaded themselves indoors. Lawlessness crept in like a thief. Bands of marauders roamed the countryside, plundering empty homes, while in urban alleys, desperation fueled theft and violence. The once steady pulse of commerce and community faltered, replaced by a chilling silence. Fear, raw and unyielding, became the plague's cruelest ally. With no understanding of the disease's true cause, a bacterium carried by fleas, people grasped at shadows for answers. Some whispered of poisoned air, others of celestial misalignments, but many saw the hand of divine wrath, a punishment for humanity's sins. In this fog of dread, paranoia flourished, and the search for culprits turned venomous. Europe's Jewish communities, long marginalized, bore the brunt of this misdirected rage. Vicious rumors spread that Jews poisoned wells to unleash the pestilence, fanned by figures like the German priest Heinrich von Herford, whose sermons branded them as Satan's agents. In Strasbourg, In February 1349, a mob herded 2,000 Jews onto a wooden platform in the city's cemetery, burning them alive in a single night of horror. Similar atrocities scarred Cologne, Mainz, and Basel, erasing entire communities and staining the era with blood. The church, a pillar of medieval life, staggered under the crisis. Nearly 40% of its clergy perished, leaving parishes bereft of guidance. Some priests fled, seeking safety in cloisters or countryside, while others, like Archbishop Thomas Bradwardine of Canterbury, ministered until the plague claimed them. The sight of holy men dying, their bodies marred by sores, shook the faithful, eroding the church's aura of divine protection. In this vacuum, extreme devotion took root. Bands of flagellants, zealous penitents clad in white robes, roamed the land, their backs bloodied by whips studded with iron spikes. Led by figures like Conrad Schmidt, a monk from Thuringia, these groups marched from town to town, chanting hymns and flogging themselves in public squares to atone for society's sins. At first, desperate villagers welcomed them, offering food and joining their processions, believing their suffering might appease an angry God. But their gatherings, teeming with open wounds, likely spread the plague further, and their radical claims of divine favor alarmed the church. By 1350, Pope Clement VI denounced them as heretics, and authorities in England and Liège crushed their movement, imprisoning leaders and scattering followers. Not all succumbed to fear or fanaticism. In some corners, glimmers of order persisted. In Nuremberg, artist Albrecht Dürer continued his work, his etchings capturing the era's anguish yet hinting at enduring creativity. But such resilience was rare. The plague's toll was not just physical but spiritual, sowing doubt and division. In England, whispers of miasmas rising from the earth led to futile remedies. Herbs hung in doorways, fires lit to purify the air. In France, lepers and foreigners joined Jews as scapegoats, driven from towns or worse. The social contract, built on mutual reliance, buckled as survival trumped solidarity. Even the rhythms of faith faltered, with church bells tolling not for prayer, but for the endless procession of the dead. This was a world unmoored, where the familiar became foreign, and trust dissolved into suspicion. Picture a mother barring her door against a sickened friend, or a merchant hoarding grain while neighbors starved. The Black Death exposed humanity's frailty, its capacity for cruelty when cornered by fear. Yet, even in this bleakness, seeds of courage were sown, waiting to sprout in the ashes of despair. As we pause, envision a lone candle flickering in a darkened home, its light frail but unyielding. The night deepens, dear listener, and our tale grows heavier, but it is not yet complete. Rest now, holding these echoes of a broken world. Soon we'll seek the sparks of hope that burned against this darkness, guiding us toward a new dawn. Beneath the quiet canopy of night, dear listener, we pause to catch our breath amid the sorrow of the Black Death's reign. The Europe we've traversed, shattered by plague, torn by fear, bears scars deep and raw. Yet within its darkest corners, flickers of light endure. Envision a lone figure tending a fevered brow by lamplight, or a village standing firm against despair, their courage a silent hymn to hope. Tonight, we gather these stories of resilience, where ordinary souls rose to extraordinary heights, defying the shadow of death with compassion and sacrifice. So, sink into the hush of this moment, let the world's weight slip away, and allow these gentle tales to cradle you, their warmth a balm against the chill of history's grief. As the Black Death carved its merciless path, it stripped away the familiar, leaving communities to grapple with loss unimaginable. Yet, amidst the wreckage, acts of heroism bloomed like wildflowers through cracked stone. In the English village of Ayam, during a later outbreak in 1665, the plague arrived in a parcel of cloth, claiming the tailor George Vickers as its first victim. Rather than flee, the villagers, led by their rector William Mompesson and Puritan minister Thomas Stanley, made a staggering choice. They would quarantine themselves to shield neighboring towns. For 14 months, Iam endured, losing over half its 800 souls, including Elizabeth Hancock, who buried her husband and 6 children in 8 days. Their sacrifice spared the region, a testament to selflessness etched in history's annals. In Siena, the chronicler Agnolo di Tura turned grief into purpose. As the plague claimed his city, he roamed its stricken streets, recording the names of the fallen in meticulous volumes. His work was no mere tally. It was a eulogy for those who died alone, ensuring their memory endured as individuals, not numbers. Risking death by handling plague-ridden bodies, Agnolo's quiet devotion preserved Siena's humanity, a beacon of dignity amid chaos. Across the continent, similar acts unfolded. In Rouen, the Sisters of Hôtel Dieu, a convent of nuns, tended the sick despite their own dwindling numbers, their hands steady even as the pestilence claimed them. In Lübeck, a northern German city, the Archbishop led processions through desolate streets, offering blessings to the grieving, his presence a fragile thread of solace. Monastic communities, too, answered the call. In Austria's Zwettl Abbey, monks transformed their cloister into a makeshift hospital, nursing victims with no regard for their own safety. Many perished, their vows of service fulfilled in the face of death. In Florence, Giovanni Boccaccio noted the tenacity of the afflicted, some dragging themselves to churches to pray, others fighting the fever with sheer will, nursed by the love of their kinsfolk and no doctor's advice. These stories, though scattered, wove a tapestry of resilience, proof that even in despair, the human spirit could burn bright. Not all heroism was quiet. In London's crowded slums, where the plague struck with particular ferocity, the wealthy stepped forward. Sir Walter Manny, a knight in King Edward III's service, donated land in Smithfield for a burial ground, later known as East Smithfield, which held over 2,400 bodies. Archaeological finds there a young woman cradling an infant, a girl with a necklace of cheap beads, speak of lives honored even in death. In Cambridge, university scholars defied the chaos, imposing strict quarantines to keep their halls of learning alive, their lamps burning against the encroaching dark. Art, too, became a vessel for hope. In Siena, ravaged by the plague, an anonymous painter reimagined Saint Sebastian, the patron saint of pestilence, not as a martyr pierced by arrows, but as a triumphant survivor. His wounds faded to scars. This bold image offered a vision of healing, a counterpoint to the era's morbid fascination with decay. In Rouen, local leaders staged a modest mystery play in the town square, a pale echo of pre-plague festivities but a vital salve for a shell-shocked crowd, huddled at a wary distance yet craving connection. These acts, grand and small, did not erase the plague's toll. Europe lost a third to half its people, a wound that would never fully heal. Yet they remind us that humanity's essence, its capacity for kindness, sacrifice, and perseverance. In the face of apocalypse, people mourned, labored, and loved, holding fast to the threads of community. Picture a widow in Iam leaving coins in vinegar-soaked stones for food, or a monk in Zwettl whispering last rites to a stranger. These were the candles lit against the night, frail but fierce. As we linger here, dear listener, imagine a single voice rising in a silent village, singing a lullaby to a child spared by chance. The Black Death's shadow looms large, but these stories of courage light our path forward. The night is deep, the tale unfinished. Rest now, carrying these sparks of hope in your heart. Soon, we'll explore how Europe's soul was reshaped in the plague's aftermath, where art and faith found new voices amid the ruins. In the wake of the Black Death, as Europe staggered from the abyss of loss, its soul found voice in art and literature, transformed by the specter of mortality. The plague, having claimed a third to half of the continent's people, left a world raw and introspective, where every brushstroke and quill mark bore the weight of survival. Picture a candlelit scriptorium, a monk's trembling hand illuminating a manuscript, or a frescoed church wall whispering of death's embrace. The cultural landscape of the late 14th century became a mirror of humanity's grief, fear, and defiant yearning for meaning, weaving a tapestry both mournful and vibrant. These works, born of trauma, not only mourned the fallen but sowed seeds of a new era, where life's fragility sparked a deeper appreciation for its fleeting beauty. The most striking artistic response was the rise of the dance macabre, or dance of death, a motif that haunted churches, manuscripts, and public squares. This grim allegory depicted skeletal figures leading a procession of all ranks, kings, popes, peasants, and maids in a fatal waltz, a chilling reminder that death spared no one. In Pisa's Camposanto, the Triumph of Death fresco, painted by Francesco Treni, loomed large, a towering skeleton, wielding a scythe over a field of corpses, demons dragging souls to torment. Such images, etched in vivid hues, captured the era's morbid fixation, their stark message resonating in a society where mass graves were a daily reality. Tomb sculptures shifted too, forsaking serene effigies for gaunt, worm-eaten forms, as if to confront viewers with decay's truth. This macabre sensibility, pervasive in woodcuts and murals, reflected a collective grappling with mortality's omnipresence. Yet, alongside this darkness, a countercurrent of humanism stirred, celebrating life's preciousness amid loss. The Italian poet Petrarch, whose beloved Laura fell to the plague, penned sonnets exalting nature, love, and learning, a stark departure from the era's obsession with death. His triumphs, allegorical poems exploring love and fame, wrestled with earthly glory's transience, offering a vision of beauty that defied despair. This shift toward earthly joys laid early groundwork for Renaissance humanism, which would champion individual dignity over medieval fatalism. Art began to soften too, with painters like Giotto crafting figures imbued with emotion and depth, their faces alive with sorrow or hope, breaking from the rigid Gothic style. These subtle changes hinted at a world turning inward, seeking meaning in the human experience rather than divine judgment. Literature, too, bore the plague's imprint, becoming a vessel for both escape and reflection. Giovanni Boccaccio's Decameron, set during Florence's plague-ravaged days, tells of 10 young nobles fleeing to a villa, where they pass the time with 100 tales of love, wit, and folly. The work's backdrop of death lends its stories a vivid urgency, as if each laugh or tear defies the grave. Boccaccio's earthy, human characters, scheming monks, clever lovers, celebrate life's messiness, offering readers a refuge from the horror outside. In England, Geoffrey Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, written in the plague's aftermath, captures a similar spirit. His pilgrims, from the bawdy wife of Bath to the pious parson, weave stories shot through with humor and heart, their journey a metaphor for survival. In The Pardoner's Tale, Chaucer probes greed's folly, while The Knight's Tale exalts love's endurance, reflecting a society wrestling with death, yet clinging to life's joys. Theater, too, evolved, giving rise to morality plays that grappled with mortality's lessons. Everyman, a stark allegory, pits its titular hero against death, who summons him to judgment. The play's message lives virtuously, for death comes unbidden and resonates with audiences haunted by the plague's sudden strikes. Performed in town squares, these dramas taught moral clarity, their simple staging drawing crowds eager for guidance in a fractured world. Such works, blending faith and caution, reinforced community bonds, offering solace through shared storytelling. The plague's cultural impact extended to music, where the dance macabre found haunting echoes. Minstrels sang of death's impartiality, their melodies weaving through courts and cloisters, a somber thread in an era of loss. These songs, often paired with vivid woodcuts, spread the motif across Europe, embedding it in the collective psyche. Yet, even here, hope flickered. Composers like Guillaume de Machaut, who survived the plague, crafted motets that blended sorrow with celestial beauty, their harmonies a prayer for renewal. These artistic shifts, born of catastrophe, marked a turning point. The Black Death's shadow lingered in Europe's art, but its stark lessons of life's brevity, death's equality sparked a new reverence for the human spirit. As we reflect, imagine a painter daubing color onto a canvas, each stroke a defiance of despair, or a poet scratching verses by firelight, weaving hope from grief. These creators, like the survivors they chronicled, forged a legacy that would blossom into the Renaissance, a testament to humanity's unyielding drive to find light in the darkest of times. The plague had swept away a third to half of its people, leaving fields untended and cities hushed. Yet from this devastation sprouted seeds of change that would redefine society. Imagine a peasant standing in a once crowded village, now half empty, realizing his labor is suddenly precious, or a merchant seizing new trade routes in a world turned upside down. Tonight, we explore the social and economic upheavals that followed the pestilence, a quiet revolution born of loss. So, settle into the stillness, let the world's cares drift away, and allow this gentle narrative to carry you through a time of transformation, where resilience forged a new path. The Black Death's toll, estimated at 75 to 200 million lives between 1347 and 1351, created a seismic shift in Europe's economic landscape. With so many gone, labor became a rare commodity, tilting the balance of power toward those who survived. Peasants, once bound to their lord's lands as serfs, found themselves in high demand. Fields lay fallow for lack of hands, and landowners, desperate to maintain their estates, offered higher wages and better terms. In England, a plowman who once toiled for mere sustenance could now negotiate for coin or a share of the harvest, while in Italy, rural workers migrated to cities, swelling urban ranks. This newfound leverage eroded the feudal system's rigid chains, which had tethered generations to the soil. In Tuscany, the story of the Giardinieri family captures this shift. Before the plague, they were sharecroppers, scraping by on a noble's land. When their landlord succumbed to the pestilence, the Giardinieri boldly claimed his vacant plot. By the 1360s, their industry had transformed them into prosperous farmers, leasing surplus land to others. Their rise, from serfs to yeoman landowners, was not unique. Across Europe, survivors seized opportunities in a depopulated world, climbing rungs of a social ladder once unthinkable. In England, the emergence of yeoman farmers, independent smallholders, marked a new class, their modest wealth fueling local markets and laying roots for a burgeoning middle stratum. Cities, too, felt the plague's ripple effects. With labor scarce, artisans and merchants stepped into roles left vacant by fallen elites. In Venice and Genoa, the disruption of old trade routes opened new avenues for commerce, as surviving traders forged connections with distant markets. Guilds, protective of their crafts, relaxed restrictions to replenish their ranks, allowing apprentices to rise faster. This fluidity fostered a proto-capitalist spirit, where ambition trumped birthright. Yet, the old order resisted. In England, the Statute of Laborers, 1349, sought to freeze wages at pre-plague levels, a desperate bid by nobles to cling to power. But economic reality outpaced decrees. Workers, emboldened, defied such laws, their mobility a quiet rebellion against feudal ties. The plague's social upheaval was not without tension. Landlords, their wealth diminished by lost tenants, lobbied for harsh penalties to bind laborers, sparking resentment. In France, the labor shortages sowed seeds for the Jacquerie Revolt of 1358, where peasants rose against their lords, a precursor to later uprisings. In England, the Peasants' Revolt of 1381 saw thousands march on London, torching palaces and demanding freedom, a direct legacy of the plague's disruption. Though crushed, these movements signaled a fracture in the feudal hierarchy, where the downtrodden glimpsed a world beyond servitude. Women, too, found new roles in the plague's wake. With men decimated, widows and daughters stepped into trades or managed estates, their contributions vital to rebuilding. In some towns, women joined guilds as brewers or weavers, their economic agency a subtle shift in a patriarchal world. While true equality remained distant, the plague cracked open doors, allowing women like Siena's Piera Tomei, who turned her villa into a hospital, to leave lasting marks. These changes, incremental yet profound, hinted at a society rethinking its structures. The economic vacuum also spurred innovation. Abandoned lands were reclaimed, often with better tools or crop rotations, as survivors adapted to feed a smaller population. In cities, public works, new wells, paved streets emerged as authorities sought to revive urban life. The influx of rural migrants to towns like Florence and London revitalized crafts and trade, setting the stage for the Renaissance's economic boom. Wealth, once concentrated among nobles, began to disperse, fostering a merchant class whose influence would reshape Europe's future. These transformations, born of catastrophe, were neither swift nor universal. Many nobles clung to privilege, and true rags to riches tales were rare. Yet, the Black Death loosened feudalism's grip, creating space for mobility and ambition. A child born a serf in 1300 faced a world of rigid bounds. Their grandchild, born in 1360, glimpsed horizons of possibility. Picture a farmer sowing seeds in a reclaimed field, or a weaver threading a loom in a bustling guild hall. These were the quiet architects of a new era. The plague's shadow lingers, but the pulse of change beats strong. Rest now, holding these stories of rebirth. Soon, we'll trace the medical and scientific strides that emerged from this crucible, guiding us deeper into a world remade. In the tender embrace of twilight, dear listener, we gather at the edge of a world forever altered by the Black Death's shadow. Europe, reeling from the loss of countless souls, stood amidst the ruins of its certainties, where healers and thinkers sought to mend what the plague had broken. Envision a quiet apothecary, its shelves lined with jars of dried leaves, or a scholar peering through a dusty tome under starlight. Tonight, we trace the faint stirrings of medical and scientific progress that rose from this sorrow, fragile sparks that would one day illuminate the path to a new age. So, rest easy. Let the night's calm wash over you and follow this soft tale of discovery, woven from the threads of a grieving continent's resolve. The Black Death, raging from 1347 to 1351, exposed the stark limits of medieval medicine, which leaned heavily on ancient wisdom from Galen and Hippocrates. Healers attributed illness to unbalanced humors, or miasma's foul airs thought to carry disease. Their remedies, like bloodletting to drain tainted blood or applying leeches to sores, often worsened the suffering, hastening death for those already weakened by plague. Physicians donned eerie masks, their beaks packed with lavender or cloves, believing such scents could repel the pestilence. Yet, these efforts, rooted in tradition, faltered against the plague's relentless tide, leaving figures like Sir John of Gaddesden, a learned noble, to watch helplessly as their potions failed. The scale of loss of perhaps 75 to 200 million lives shattered faith in old practices, forcing a reckoning with their futility. From this failure, a new curiosity took root. The plague's indiscriminate wrath prompted some to question inherited doctrines. In Avignon, Surgeon Guy de Chauliac, who survived the disease himself, wrote a treatise urging hygiene, clean bandages, fresh air, and the isolation of the sick to curb spread. His insistence on observation over dogma marked a subtle shift toward evidence-based care. In Italy, Tommaso del Garbo advocated studying patients' symptoms closely, charting fever scores, rather than citing ancient texts. These early efforts at tracking disease patterns foreshadowed epidemiology, though centuries would pass before its full flowering. Such steps, tentative as they were, began to chip away at the monolithic authority of classical medicine, nurturing a skepticism that would fuel later scientific breakthroughs. Cities, battered by the plague's toll, embraced practical measures. Venice, a crossroads of trade, pioneered a lasting innovation, a quarantine station on Lazaretto Nuovo, where ships waited 40 days before docking, a practice named for the Italian Quaranta. Health passes, certifying travelers as disease-free, became standard, spreading to other ports. Florence invested in aqueducts to clear refuse from streets, acting on the belief that filth bred miasmas. Though unaware of the true vector fleas harboring Yersinia pestis, these actions laid groundwork for public health, showing that coordinated effort could blunt disease's edge. The plague taught a harsh truth. Survival hinged on collective vigilance, not just individual remedies. Scholars, inspired by the crisis, began to probe nature's secrets. Roger Bacon, an English friar whose pre-plague writings gained traction, had championed experiment over blind tradition, a view echoed in post-plague universities. From Oxford to Padua, debates swirled about contagion's mechanics, with some noting the plague's preference for crowded ports or slums, hinting at transmission over cosmic causes. These insights, though incomplete, nudged medicine toward rationality, where data began to rival revered texts. The plague's patterns became a puzzle, its lessons slowly shaping a more inquisitive mindset. Practical advances emerged too. In villages, farmers adopted iron-tipped plows to till land with fewer workers, improving harvests. Apothecaries tested new mixtures of vinegar washes, thyme-infused balms, and some inadvertently repelling fleas. In Milan, during later outbreaks, officials burned contaminated cloth, a primitive stab at sterilization. These innovations, driven by necessity, reflected a dawning belief that human ingenuity could wrestle with fate. Though far from modern science, they marked a pivot toward action grounded in trial and error. Progress was halting, constrained by the era's tools. Superstitions, talismans, holy relics persisted, and true understanding of bacteria awaited future centuries. Yet, the plague's defiance of old cures sowed doubt, fostering a willingness to question. Figures like Guy de Chauliac, meticulously noting each case, or Venetian magistrates enforcing ship inspections, were unwitting architects of a scientific dawn. Their work, though limited, bridged medieval faith to Renaissance reason. As we draw this chapter to a close, dear listener, picture a healer grinding herbs by moonlight, each pestle's scrape a quiet act of defiance. The Black Death's wounds run deep, but these small strides whisper of hope, a promise of knowledge to come. Let these visions linger as you rest, a gentle reminder of humanity's quest for truth amid ruin. Our tale nears its end, and soon we'll reflect on the plague's lasting echoes, a legacy that speaks to our own trials under distant stars. In the soft embrace of this waning night, dear listener, we reach the final chapter of our journey through the Black Death's shadowed veil. Europe, scarred by the plague's ruthless toll, emerged, transformed, its heart forever marked by loss and resilience. Picture a survivor sowing seeds in a reclaimed field, or a poet weaving hope into verse by candlelight, their acts a testament to humanity's unyielding spirit. Tonight, we reflect on the pestilence's enduring legacy, how it reshaped society, faith, and thought, and its haunting relevance to our own time. So, let the stillness hold you gently, release the world's clamor, and drift with me through this tale's closing weave, where history's echoes whisper lessons of courage and compassion. The Black Death, claiming 75 to 200 million lives between 1347 and 1351, left an indelible mark on Europe's soul. Its demographic toll, a third to half the population, stunted growth for generations, with some regions, like Florence, not recovering their numbers until the 1000s. Yet, from this devastation sprang profound change. The feudal order, already fraying, buckled under labor shortages, empowering peasants to demand wages and freedom. This shift birthed a middle class, whose wealth and ambition fueled the Renaissance, a cultural rebirth celebrating human potential. In cities like Venice, new trade routes flourished, laying economic foundations for modernity. The plague's upheaval, though born of tragedy, cracked open a world of possibility, where serfs' grandchildren dreamed beyond the plow. Religiously, the plague shook the Catholic Church's foundations. The death of 40% of its clergy, coupled with some priests' flight from duty, eroded its divine aura. Survivors questioned how a merciful God could unleash such suffering, sowing seeds of doubt that blossomed into the Reformation. Movements like the Brethren of the Common Life, founded by Geert Groot, emphasized personal piety over institutional pomp, influencing humanists like Erasmus. The Lollards in England, advocating a vernacular Bible, found fertile ground in this crisis of faith, their ideas presaging Protestant calls for reform. The plague's spiritual toll thus sparked a shift toward individual belief, a cornerstone of modern thought. Culturally, the plague's shadow lingered in art and lore. The dance macabre endured in paintings and rhymes, its skeletal figures a grim reminder of death's impartiality. Folk tales and nursery rhymes, like Ring Around the Rosie, are thought to echo the plague's rosy lesions and fatal fall, though their origins remain debated. These artifacts embedded the trauma in Europe's psyche, a collective memory of fragility. Yet, the plague also birthed humanism, with poets like Petrarch celebrating life's fleeting joys. This duality of morbid reflection and vibrant renewal defined the Renaissance, a cultural leap that reshaped art, science, and philosophy. Medically, the plague exposed the limits of medieval knowledge, spurring innovations like quarantine and sanitation. Though centuries from germ theory, these measures laid public health's groundwork. The skepticism born of failed remedies fueled scientific inquiry, with figures like Roger Bacon's call for experiment echoing into the Enlightenment. The plague's lessons, observation over dogma, collective action over superstition, became pillars of modern medicine, evident in our own battles with pandemics. The Black Death's relevance resonates today. Its parallels to modern crises, global disease, and social strain remind us of humanity's vulnerability and strength. Like the villagers of Ayam, who quarantined to save others in 1665, or chronicler Agnolo di Tura, who preserved Sienna's fallen in ink, we find echoes in healthcare workers, braving pandemics, or communities rallying in crisis. The plague's scapegoating of Jews mirrors modern prejudice born of fear, urging us to guard against division. Its economic shifts, empowering the marginalized, challenge us to build equitable societies. Above all, the plague teaches resilient survivors like Giovanni Morelli, who rebuilt after losing his family, or Piera Tome, who turned her home into a hospital, show that hope endures even in despair. These stories, distant yet familiar, speak to our shared humanity. The Black Death was no mere catastrophe but a mirror, reflecting our capacity for cruelty, courage, and renewal. Its legacy, social mobility, scientific progress, individual faith shapes our world, a testament to those who carried on. As we face our own trials, from pandemics to unrest, the plague's wisdom endures, cherishes life's fragility, foster compassion, and hold fast to community. In its darkest hour, humanity found light, a lesson as vital now as it was 7 centuries ago. As dawn whispers on the horizon, dear listener, our tale of the Black Death draws to its close. Let these voices of peasants, poets, and healers linger in your dreams, their courage a beacon through time. The plague's shadow reminds us life is fleeting, yet its survivors teach us to build anew with hope and heart. Thank you for wandering this path with me. If their stories stirred you, share your thoughts or join me again for more history's lullabies. Now, rest beneath the stars, carrying their resilience into your tomorrow. Good night, and may your dreams bloom with the promise of a brighter dawn.